What if the most undeniable truth about your existence, a truth that outlasts empires and just overrides every single decision you make, what if that could be distilled into just 6 words?
I mean, it sounds almost impossible, right?
It really does. But welcome to the deep dive. Usually, when we attempt to explore massive philosophical concepts with you, we're staring down the barrel of 1,000-page text.
Oh, yeah, those giant volumes where you rely on the sheer physical weight of the book to tell you the ideas inside are heavy.
Exactly. But today, for you listening, we have a uniquely concentrated mission. We're actually analyzing a single sentence that was provided by you, our listener.
And honestly, the brevity is actually the most intimidating part of this challenge.
How so?
Well, think of a zip file on a computer. It might look like this tiny, insignificant icon on your desktop, barely taking up any space at all.
Right.
But when you apply the right algorithmic framework to deconstruct it, that tiny file unfolds into gigabytes of high-definition video, complex software, massive data sets.
Oh, I see what you mean. So the density is the point.
Yeah. Exactly. When language is compressed to this extreme degree, every single syllable functions like a line of code. You cannot afford to skip a letter because the author hasn't wasted a single breath.
That makes total sense. So our source material today is an excerpt from a text titled The Sovereign Witness of Time.
Mm.
And the specific section we are decoding is labeled Surah al-Awr's 103.1, which simply states, and this is the quote, "I swear by the passage of time."
Just 16 words total, including the title and the citation?
Yeah, 16 words. Okay, so let's unpack this, because before we can even touch the sentence itself, we really have to grapple with the conceptual framing of that title, The Sovereign Witness.
Right, those are two very loaded words.
Very loaded. We're combining a word that implies absolute, active authority, a sovereign, with a word that implies passive observation, a witness.
Yeah, which usually don't go together.
No, not at all. I mean, think of a sovereign witness, like a Supreme Court judge who observes every single piece of evidence in a trial, but remains completely untouchable by the trial itself. Usually, kings issue decrees and move armies, while witnesses just happen to be standing on the corner watching the parade go by.
Right, right.
So how do those two conflicting ideas, sovereign authority and passive witnessing, how do they fuse together here?
What's fascinating here is how that juxtaposition creates an entirely different category of power.
Oh, okay. Like what?
Well, in psychology, there is a concept called the Hawthorne effect.
Oh, right, where people change when they're watched.
Exactly. It describes how human beings fundamentally alter their behavior the moment they realize they are being observed. The mere presence of a watcher changes the reality of the room.
Wow, yeah. So just by watching, the witness exerts power.
Precisely. By framing time as a sovereign witness, the text is suggesting that time is not just some passive clock ticking away on a wall. It possesses ultimate authority precisely because it observes everything without ever intervening.
It just watches.
Right. It watches our daily struggles. It watches political regimes collapse. It watches every private decision we make in the dark. And it yields to absolutely no one.
We can't bribe it.
You cannot bribe it for an extra hour. You cannot negotiate a treaty with it. I mean, ask yourself, and I mean you listening right now, do you view time merely as a resource you spend or as a sovereign witness that passively yet powerfully observes your every move?
Oh, man. But hold on. Isn't that a deeply defeatist framework?
How do you mean?
Well, if we are just subjects standing in like a panopticon, constantly watched by this untouchable, unfeeling clock that seems to strip away human agency entirely.
It can feel that way, yeah.
We're like, why even try to build anything or strive for anything if we are completely subordinate to this silent sovereign observer?
Well, it only feels defeatist if you are operating under the illusion of control.
Okay, fair.
Acknowledging an overwhelming environmental reality isn't surrendering your agency. It's actually the prerequisite for using it effectively.
Give me an example.
Think about gravity. You cannot control gravity, and gravity observes every physical movement you make, constantly pulling at you.
Right? It's an absolute rule.
Exactly. But acknowledging that gravity is sovereign doesn't mean you stop trying to move. It means you use that knowledge to figure out how to build an airplane.
Oh, wow. That's a great way to put it.
The framing device of the sovereign witness is really just stripping away the modern human ego.
Yeah.
It recalibrates our position in the universe before it even delivers the primary message.
It's humbling us before the main event.
Exactly.
And that drastically changes the posture we take when approaching the text, which naturally leads to a logistical problem, I think.
What's that?
Well, If time is this untouchable sovereign authority that eventually consumes everything, how do humans even begin to interact with it?
You can't just speak casually to it.
Right, you can't just throw a casual observation at a sovereign force and expect it to survive. You need a formal architecture. And we see that immediately in the structural categorization of the text.
Ah, yes, the indexing.
Exactly. Surah Al-Asr 103.1.
Mhm.
It's not just a random piece of poetry floating in the ether. It implies this massive ancient archive.
Yeah, that indexing is essentially a piece of intellectual technology.
Intellectual technology, I like that.
I mean, for a message to survive the very thing it is describing, the relentless degradation of time, it cannot be a loose thought. It must be embedded into a larger, heavily reinforced structure.
Right, because time will just erode a loose thought.
Exactly. When you see 103.1, you are looking at an algorithmic survival tool. It tells the reader that there are at least 102 preceding foundational structures supporting this single thought.
It's like finding a set of GPS coordinates, rather than just a vague description of a landscape.
That's a perfect analogy.
And think about how that impacts you as a listener. When you encounter a random, unattributed quote floating in your social media feed, you process it with immediate skepticism, right?
Yeah, of course. It lacks roots.
Exactly, it lacks roots. But when you are handed a citation, chapter 103, verse 1, your brain immediately registers that generations of human beings have organized, protected, and indexed this specific sentence.
The formatting itself dictates our level of trust before we have even processed the vocabulary.
Yeah, it commands a totally different type of respect.
And consider the word surah as well, which designates a specific enclosed chapter or division.
Like a structural boundary.
Right. And combined with the one, marking it as an opening declaration, the text is firmly establishing a perimeter. This raises an important question. How often do we mistake a lack of structure for a lack of profoundness?
Oh, that's interesting. Like we want truth to be messy.
Yeah, we expect great truths to be wild and untamed, like a genius scribbling on a napkin. But history shows us that the ideas that actually survive the sovereign witness of time are the ones meticulously cataloged and cross-referenced.
So the architecture of 103.1 serves as a protective shell for the philosophical payload inside.
Precisely. It's the casing for the ideas.
Well, let's trigger that payload then, because we are finally at the point where the speaker of the text steps forward and takes definitive action. The first two words of the quote.
I swear.
This is a massive shift in tone.
It really is. And here's where it gets really interesting. In modern society, human brains crave tangibility, especially when it comes to trust.
Right? Oh, absolutely. We want to touch things.
Yeah. If you walk into a courtroom, you place your hand on a physical, heavy book to swear an oath. Or people swear on the graves of their ancestors. We want to anchor our promises to material objects we can see and touch.
Tangible anchors.
Exactly. So why abandon that human instinct and make an oath on something completely invisible and intangible like time?
Well, the reliance on tangible objects is actually a massive vulnerability.
Wait, really? How so?
Let's look at the mechanical function of an oath. When you swear by an object, you are staking the credibility of your upcoming statement on the perceived permanence and truth of that object.
Right, you're elevating that object to the absolute highest standard. Yes, you are saying, my words are as unbreakable as this thing.
Okay, I'm with you.
But the problem with swearing on the material world is that the material world is inherently fragile.
Oh, I see where this is going.
Right. If you swear your allegiance on a king's crown and the empire is overthrown the next day, what happens to the foundation of your truth?
It completely collapses.
It collapses. A book can be thrown in a fire. A monument can be eroded by wind.
So by swearing on something completely invisible, you are actually bypassing the vulnerabilities of the physical universe.
Exactly. You aren't just making a guarantee, you are anchoring your credibility to the fundamental fabric of reality itself.
Because you can't burn time.
You can't burn it. You can't lock it in a vault. The speaker is executing a brilliant philosophical maneuver here.
It's almost like a trap.
It is a trap. To doubt the truth of the upcoming message, the listener would first have to doubt the existence of the very moment they are currently experiencing.
Wow. It traps the audience in the reality of the oath.
Exactly. You cannot escape the object being sworn upon, which means you cannot easily dismiss the gravity of the words that follow. It is the ultimate hedge against material entropy.
That is wild. And that really sets up a massive collision of concepts when we look at the final part of the excerpt.
The object itself.
Yeah, the oath is anchored, and we finally see the object it is tethered to by the passage of time. And the specific inclusion of the word passage is just doing a tremendous amount of heavy lifting here.
It really is the operative word.
I mean, it creates a distinction between observing a river from a distance and actually standing in the water.
Oh, I like that analogy. Break that down.
Well, from a mile away, a river looks like a permanent static blue line drawn on a map. You think, oh, the river's always there.
It seems like a solid object.
Right. But the moment you step into the river, you realize it isn't a static object at all. It is pure momentum.
Yes.
Constant movement. The water touching your ankle right now is gone a second later, replaced by entirely new water, which instantly vanishes again. So swearing by the passage is like swearing by the current, not the river itself.
The current is what defines the river's existence. Swearing by the passage highlights the friction of the present moment.
The fleeting nature of it.
Exactly. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, we have a severe cognitive dissonance in how modern society interacts with time.
Really do.
Ever since the Industrial Revolution introduced the punch clock and the hourly wage, we have been conditioned to view time as a physical commodity.
Oh, yeah. We talk about spending time.
We spend it, we save time, we talk about wasting time.
Right. We treat it like currency sitting in a bank account that we actively manage.
Exactly. We put ourselves in the role of the sovereign.
We think we are the ones distributing the wealth of our days.
But the text violently rejects that premise. Time is not a commodity you possess. It is an environmental constant you endure.
Because you don't spend a river's current.
No, you merely stand in it as it rushes past you. By swearing by the passage, the author forces us to confront the relentless loss of the present moment.
It's just constant loss.
It is, but it is also the single universal constant that unites all human experience. No matter your geographical location, your economic status, your political ideology, the passage of time is acting upon you right now.
It really is the ultimate equalizer.
Completely. The wealthiest person on the planet and the poorest person on the planet both lose the last 60 seconds at exactly the same rate of speed.
Yeah, you can't buy more current.
You really can't.
And it forces us to look at how humans fundamentally operate in defiance of that reality. I mean, think about it. Entire industries worth billions of dollars are built on the psychological promise of freezing the river.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Anti-aging creams, cryogenics.
Yeah. We are obsessed with anti-aging technologies, with capturing millions of digital photos to lock a moment in amber, with trying to artificially pause our lives.
We are terrified of the current.
We really are. Swearing by the passage of time is a direct confrontation with that core human instinct to resist momentum.
It forces a necessary surrender.
A surrender to reality.
Yes. The passage of time dictates that everything physical is temporary, which our brains naturally interpret as a tragedy. But there is an underlying scarcity principle applied to existence here.
What do you mean by scarcity principle?
Well, it is only because the river has a current that the water has any force. If time were static, if we had an infinite, unchanging supply of moments, our decisions would carry absolutely no weight.
Because there'd be no consequences. You could just do it again.
Exactly. The passage is the mechanism that enforces a limit, and that limit is what gives human action its value. Are you constantly fighting the passage of time, trying to freeze it, or do you accept it as the ultimate grounding reality of your existence?
Man, when the speaker swears by this relentless mechanism, they are binding the urgency of the human condition to the certainty of their message. They are saying, just as surely as this exact second is slipping out of your grasp forever, what I'm about to tell you is reality.
It's incredibly powerful.
It really is. You know, we started this deep dive looking at a tiny 16-word sentence, treating it like a compressed zip file. And when we ran the extraction algorithm, we found an incredibly vast philosophical landscape.
We really did. We decoded the concept of the sovereign witness, utilizing the Hawthorne effect to understand how the mere presence of time's unyielding observation recalibrates human authority.
Right. And we examined the technology of textual preservation, how the architecture of 103.1 serves as a protective shell, ensuring a concept survives the degradation of history.
We analyzed the mechanics of an oath.
Yeah, the invisible oath.
Exactly. Why tethering a promise to the invisible, indestructible fabric of reality is infinitely more powerful than swearing on a fragile material object.
And finally, we confronted the illusion of time as a physical commodity, recognizing it instead as an environmental momentum, the ultimate equalizer that gives weight to our existence through its relentless passage.
It's a lot to take in from 16 words.
It is. So what does this all mean? We have deconstructed the mechanisms and the history behind these words, but how does this shift our perspective when we step away from the analysis and back into our actual lives?
Well, I think the synthesis of these ideas requires us to turn the lens inward.
Okay, how so?
We have established that time functions as a sovereign witness, meaning it observes everything flawlessly, without intervention. And we have established that the passage of this time is an unstoppable equalizing force.
Right.
The lingering question for you listening to mull over today is this: if time is an infallible witness and its passage is continuous, what testimony is it currently recording about you?
Oh, wow.
We naturally assume that the passage of time erases our actions, that we are eventually washed away by the current. But the act of taking an unbreakable oath by time implies the exact opposite.
It implies permanence.
It implies that time is the ultimate ledger. If time permanently records everything it witnesses, and it is witnessing you right now, in this very passing moment, what is being written.
That drastically changes how you interact with the very next minute of your day.
Yeah.
It takes this highly concentrated text and turns it into a mirror reflecting your own momentum.
It definitely makes you stop and think.
It really does. Thank you to our listener for providing a source that proves we can never judge the intellectual depth of an idea by its word count alone. For you listening, keep observing the currents around you, keep questioning the structures you rely on, and keep digging into the depths of your curiosity. Until next time.